So you're hearing all of this about smart growth and revitalization and building the economy. It sounds so nice, but it's always linked to what, a land grab, and then to this smart technology data gathering infrastructure that is going to surveil you, manage your access based on social credit, and confine you to your house.
So we're going to shift gears now, and I'm going to introduce Julianne Romanello. And she is a mother, she's a wife, she's a PhD, she's an expert in all things. You've heard buzzword bingo, 20, 30, 15-minute cities, smart cities, all of those kinds of things. Julianne is an expert in that. So everyone, oh yes. And at the very end, we will do some Q&A, and we have some microphones set up here in the center. So if you've got a question, we want to make sure that we capture that on a microphone here in the center. So please do that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm excited to be here. I haven't done an in-person talk in a little while now, so it's good to be back with my fellow Oklahomans to talk about all things New World Order. That is what we're going to talk about tonight, and my husband is getting the slide share ready. So let me also say just a couple of housekeeping details. One, I have way too many slides. I always do that, and there is a lot of information crammed onto each one of these slides. So you won't be able to read all of it, and we won't be able to go over all of it this evening, but I will create a Google Drive folder that I'll share with Vic and Carla, and then they can make that link available to you all to view the slides and the documents that are excerpted on the slides, and you'll be able to access that after tonight's talk if you have questions. Also, we're recording tonight, so let me thank Bryan Mayberry and his wife Denise. Bryan graciously donates his time to make these videos and to tidy up the audio so that it sounds good, and you can find those on YouTube. I have a channel, it's Hearts Over Hexagons, and you can find many of my talks from around the state that cover this material there. So without further ado, let's see, it always takes me a few minutes to get sort of situated with the technology. Is it this one? Okay, is it registering? Oh, good, okay. This is a QR code. If you would like to join a group on Signal that is against smart cities, against the New World Order, it's against the land grab, you can scan this QR code, and that will give you a link to join a Signal group that has Oklahomans from all over the state. I'm in it. Many people here are probably in it. And I'll put that QR code back up at the end of the talk. So as soon as I see the phones go down, then I'll go on to the next slide.
Excuse me, could we turn off the lights in the front of the room so we can see that better? We're actually working on it right now, so let's see if we can.
Okay.
Is that better? Oh, that's a lot better.
There you go. Okay, so what we're going to go over tonight, and I'll try to be fast, is basically the program of the Great Reset, which, how many of you have heard of that program? Probably most of you. Okay, great. So we're going to go over the Great Reset, which is the World Economic Forum's moniker for Agenda 21. It is the New World Order. It is the Build Back Better. It is inclusive capitalism, multicultural capitalism, regenerative capitalism. There are many names for this program. I'll usually use New World Order because I like that. It's fun. So we're going to talk about that and how it's going to affect Oklahomans, and especially Oklahomans in Washington County. So there are two prongs to that Great Reset. You know, one is more familiar than the other. That is the sort of smart city program and the 15-minute city program, which we'll get into. If you are unfamiliar with those terms, don't worry, we'll get to it. And then there's also a rural reset, which is a land grab. And so we're going to talk about how the smart city agenda and the land grab go hand in hand. Which one? Oops. See, I am technologically challenged. Oh, there we go. You'd think I'd be used to this by now, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about the Great Reset, the land grab, and the smart growth, comprehensive planning, and the rural reset. So your comprehensive plan for Washington County, and we're really going to focus on conservation plans that affect people in Washington County. So that's going to cover our rural reset. And then we're going to look at Bartlesville and look at your city plans there. And oh man, they're bad. As the county seat goes, so goes the county. So we're going to talk about how smart growth, comprehensive planning feeds into that smart city, 15-minute city agenda. So two things go hand in hand. There are federal and state and regional land grab policies that are primarily through conservation plans, and then there's the smart growth, economic development, workforce development, urban model, okay? We'll do that, and I think I have several programs that are specific to your area that we'll go over in some detail, and then I hope have time for some questions. Okay, so what is the Great Reset? It is a plan to overhaul the economy completely. So you might see I've got Klaus Schwab up here. And these are excerpts from articles on the WEF website. You'll see it says, in short, we need a great reset of capitalism. What is it? Well, the second article, that's how the finance industry can save the world. It says, excuse me, it talks about the UN and how we need to address climate change, and we need to do it right now, or else we're going to face planetary catastrophe. How are we going to address that climate crisis? It says through a global economic initiative that has no documented historic precedent. This is from their own words, right? And it says the solution is completely overhauling the world economy. In this era of intense nationalism, we need to basically have the nations of the world come together and pull off the greatest collaborative feat in human history in order to accomplish the UN's lofty goals. Okay, so the Great Reset is it's a program to completely overhaul the world's economy and society, education, business, you name it, the reset seeks to overturn it. You know, at one of my talks, there was a member of the press from the Bartlesville Examiner present, and he accused me of being a conspiracy theorist. I think that article is behind a paywall now. I thought I really should have included a screenshot of it. But, you know, just to address that, I have the question, the Great Reset, is it just a conspiracy? Well, I like to look at marketing materials, at symbols, at different tropes and things like this, and buzzwords. So once you have heard of the Great Reset program, you start to notice that that phrase is used over and over and over again. So this is just a selection of little pieces that talk about resetting America's response to COVID-19, resetting your brain. Time has the Great Reset on the cover, a reset at the White House, Tulsa County Reset Program, Reset Louisiana's Future, which uses the same color scheme as Klaus Schwab's book. So I would say, is it a conspiracy? I don't think so. So the WEF, again, this says that what do we need? We need to implement a new financial program that's going to have a massive economic overhaul and a complete rethinking of the global financial value system. So where this is going, just in a nutshell, and I won't get into all of it, it is, sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback over here. I don't know if you all can hear that. Where this is going is social credit scoring, and it's going to the sharing economy, which is one that we will use social credits to make our transactions with each other, to complete those transactions. So we're moving away from money altogether. This is what the Bartlesville Examiner reporter criticized me for saying. We are moving toward a value system, not a monetary system. What are those values? Those are social credits, and they're tied to the UN's Sustainable Development Goals and being a good global citizen. So instead of, me giving you $5 and you giving me, a couple of farm-raised eggs, then we will sort of we'll exchange our social credits and the accounts that we have built up through our good behavior. Now, that goes to the 1974 UN Declaration on the Establishment of a New International Economic Order. And I could show you I have a PDF of that resolution, but it's absolutely right there. Okay, so what is the Great Reset really about? It's about sustainable development. And there are two prongs to sustainable development. One is economic growth and sort of social inclusion, and the other is environmental or resource management. And we're going to see that in that smart city land grab paradigm, both of these prongs are at play. So when the Bartlesville City Plan says that we're going to pursue sustainable growth, you know that you're dealing with an Agenda 21 plan, okay? So, and what sustainable development does is try to balance risk and reward. And it says, we have the potential risk of, economic inequality that's brewing because capitalism has gone so wrong. And so we need to fix it by implementing this new inclusive capitalism or regenerative capitalism or reset capitalism. And that means, so we'll lower the risk of social instability, and the reward will be prosperity for all. Right? And so the same garbage is listed with environmental or resource management. We have climate risk is business risk. Oh no, if the whole planet, overheats, then you won't be able to open your shop the next day. So we really need to cool the planet, right? That's how their arguments go. What's really important to know are these buzzword phrases that I have at the bottom. Managed growth, balancing values for the future, common vision. These are all stock phrases that if you see them, you can be very, very sure that you're dealing with a New World Order program. Okay, so let's look at the land grab, and I'll try to speed through this because probably you've seen some of this before. The America the Beautiful report was issued by the Biden-Harris administration, and it specifically says that we need to conserve at least 30% of our lands and waters by 2030. And there's actually a goal to conserve 50% by 2050. So this is putting lands, waters, really all resources into the custodianship of the government and its partners for the management of those resources and lands. When Wes was talking about McGirt, I would say, the McGirt decision is absolutely about a land grab. in creating these reservations, it's basically giving the federal government power over the lands, and so they're going to attach conservation easements to those lands so that the Native American peoples and Oklahomans who live in those areas will not be able to use the lands as they would like to. Okay, so this report lays it out pretty clearly. It says, you know, we have to engage in conservation efforts to mitigate the climate crisis and strengthen the economy. So this is an example of what I'll call the communitarian balancing formula, where you know you're dealing with a sustainable development program if you have balancing the economy with environmental resource protection. Those are the two prongs, right? So anytime that you see those two together, and there are others in addition to environment and economy, but those are the main two, you know you're dealing with a globalist program. Okay, so this says, let me see what I was going to highlight here. So it is really, this is a collectivist program. You can see collective capacity to safeguard the resources. It's everyone's responsibility. Just like we saw with how COVID was handled, it was a community responsibility to protect the community. So individual rights really do get lost in this whole program, okay? They talk about balancing individual rights against the common good, or, you know, trying to reconcile the common good and individual rights, but I can tell you that the individual rights will lose out every single time. You can see they're talking about binding us as one people, so it's really an effort at homogenization. Okay, so this, you know, this federal land grab is not really a federal land grab, it's a global land grab. And you can see that it stems from this COP15 conference, which is a UN conference on bio, it's the conference of the parties, and it deals with all sorts of environmental issues. But at COP15, there was this landmark agreement on biodiversity. And you can see that the language from the UN Environmental Program, it says that the plan includes concrete measures to halt and reverse nature loss, including putting 30% of the planet and 30% of degraded ecosystems under protection by 2030. So Biden is just ripping off the UN here. It's also not a public land grab in the sense that this is not going to be, you know, like old style communism where the state is taking over you know, resources and putting them under the control of a state agency. This is actually going to be sort of agreements between private landowners and private stakeholder councils that manage the land on behalf of the government. So you can see that they talk about we need to put, look, an additional 440 million acres into conservation in less than 10 years, over 4 times the size of California. How are they going to do this? By creating incentives for private landowners to preserve the public interest. So that's the balancing of individual rights and the common good. Private lands are especially important because of the valuable habitat and biodiversity, and because endangered species rely on these areas. So that biodiversity convention, you can see right here in the America the Beautiful report that they have that in mind. Okay, so again, it's not public, it's privatized. So we want to get, we need to fully engage private landowners so that we have positive outcomes for the environment, especially for wildlife and endangered species. And there are policy tools and incentives that already exist. And you can see right here, one of the policy tools, and this is from a white paper from the Center for Growth and Opportunity, it talks about conservation banking. Now, conservation banking is basically a cap and trade system tied to the biodiversity of your land. So if you have an area of land that has the potential for rich biodiversity, you'll get credits and you can trade those. Well, this is all a fiction that people are going to trade, and it's going to work like the cap and trade system in the energy sector, which doesn't work very well, right? But that's what they're proposing. And it's not really about a land grab, it's more about a data grab. Now, you can read here that it says that no single metric, this is the sort of second highlighted section, including a percentage target that could fully measure progress toward the fulfillment of those interrelated goals. Similarly, there's no single database that could capture the texture and nuance of the economic and social values of every restoration or conservation action. With these caveats, transparent and measurable goals for conservations can be a helpful tool to set a baseline, understand overall trends, and catalyze the collective action that's necessary. So, as I said, this is a sort of it's a collectivist, community-based effort to grab the land, but for what? Really, it's for the ability to measure and manage all of the attributes of that land, and then to trade in those through for example, the conservation banking system. So they want to get all of the data. How many species do you have? How many different plants of this type? What is the level of pollution of your runoff, and what streams does it feed into? All of this goes into measuring progress to the goal, and that goes toward what the new economy is. You've heard the phrase, data is the new oil, right? So the data is what's really valuable, and they want to grab this data because it helps their efforts to sustainably manage all resources. And that, of course, includes measuring and managing you and me. Okay, so what is the reset? It's a global privatized, data-driven system. And, I have some of the important statutes listed up there. And there are these 3 pillars. I said 2 earlier because I linked them together. Economic growth, environmental protection, and social cohesion. Now, the social cohesion, anytime you hear quality of life, and it's in your plans, it's in the conservation plans, and it's in the smart growth plans, that signals a pillar of sustainable development that's tied to the UN Sustainable Development Goals that treat specifically quality of life issues like housing, clean water, education, partnerships for the goals, no hunger, no poverty, and so on. Comprehensive plans, just to sort of sum this up, and this is where we're going to get into in just a minute, comprehensive plans are the frameworks for implementing the measured and managed economy in your hometown. Now, there's one other item that we need to make mention of, and that is the 4th Industrial Revolution. This is a super high-tech program of robotics, quantum computers, digitized everything that is really transforming the economy. It's making workers redundant or obsolete. And it is making that trade of information happen very quickly and in real time, which is valuable to marketers and giant corporations that want to manipulate your behavior. They can determine where you are in real time, your mood in real time, and then they can feed you all sorts of stimuli that's going to make you act in a certain way in real time. Okay, that is possible because of the 4IR, and that is the sort of basis and rubric of what a smart city is. So you see billions of people connected by mobile devices with unprecedented processing power, storage capacity, and access to knowledge. It sounds wonderful. Oh, except for that first line. It is the blurring of lines between the physical, digital, and biological spheres. They really want to collapse that, okay? So what is a smart city? Let's move. So you saw America the Beautiful. They're doing the land grab. It's global, private, and data-driven. So that really speaks to the rural areas, but now let's move to the urban areas. And what is a smart city? Okay, this is from the UN, and they say a smart city uses information and communications technologies and other means to improve quality of life. I told you what quality of life is. That's social cohesion. It's the goals of the UN 2030 agenda, those beautiful 17 goals. So we're going to use information and communications technologies and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operation and services, and competitiveness while, okay, this is your balancing formula, ensuring that it meets the needs of present and future generations with respect to economic, social, and environmental aspects. You've heard of ESG scoring on the corporate level. This is what it is. Okay, a smart city is going to collect the data for ESG scoring. And if you think that these giant corporations are going to leave you alone once you leave the office place, you're wrong, because they're going to track scope 3 emissions as part of their carbon emissions reporting requirements, and that includes your commute time and also what you do at home while you're working remotely. Okay, so a smart city, all the smart city infrastructure helps collect the data that's going to feed into ESG scoring, which is just social credit scoring for businesses. So related to smart cities, and also to the land grab, is smart growth. Now this is from Smart Growth America. I recommend that you sign up for their newsletters and just check their page, because they're going to tell you everything that you want to know about the reset and 15-minute cities and what's going on in your hometown. And you don't have to listen to a long presentation by me at the end of the night to get that valuable information. So Smart Growth America, and you can search for your city or county. I didn't find Washington County listed, but I did find Pawhuska, Oklahoma, and Tulsa and Oklahoma City. They're of course in there. So what is smart growth? This is the economic marketing tool that goes along with redevelopment efforts to measure and manage the potential for economic activity in your area. Okay, so it's going to lead to a healthy, prosperous, resilient, all buzzword, environment. It's going to be vibrant, connected. I think, what is Bartlesville's? Bartlesville has this, it's like connected, vibrant, unique, these three-word slogans. They're all buzzwords, stock phrases from this program. Okay, so there are several attributes of a smart growth model. Now, part of it is the high tech, and I'm not talking about that right now. That's sort of what that UN slide dealt with, information and communications technologies. But there are also these planning guidelines that have to do with land use. We want mixed land use, compact design of buildings, affordable housing, that's a big one. Every city is doing it, right? Preserve open space and critical environmental areas. All of these different prongs of comprehensive planning are related to smart growth, which is the pillar of sustainable development that goes to the economy. Now you can see this is a slide I use from TWI Global. It's a global consulting firm, and it talks about what a smart city is. And you can see here where the tech and that smart growth economic policy go hand in hand. So a smart city uses information and communications technologies to improve operational efficiency. Sounds great, right? Share information with the public. Oh, that sounds great, right? and provide a better quality of life, quality of government service and citizen welfare. Sounds wonderful, right? So this is how it's going to make your city better, build back better. The main goal is to optimize city functions and promote economic growth using smart technologies and data analysis. So what's going to happen here is, under the auspices of needing to remain competitive in an increasingly global and digitized world, you're going to see your Chamber of Commerce and your Economic Development Authority push these smart city policies, whether it is just implementing that infrastructure or using a comprehensive planning approach to smart growth. And they're going to say, look, this is going to bring us into the next century, and it's going to make Bartlesville have a place on the map, right? But I've done this in a lot of tiny towns in Oklahoma, and everyone's doing the same thing. You all have, well, does Bartlesville? I'm sure it has an axe throwing bar. Every little downtown has the same things. You've got an axe throwing bar, you have a little microbrewery, you've got the scooters, right? You've got the little street lights that hang across, and they look kind of cute. Jenks is like this, Broken Arrow is like this, Tulsa, my hometown of Fort Smith. Every place is doing the same exact thing. So let me ask you, and they sell it to you saying, well, we have to remain competitive in a globalized and digitalized world. Well, when every little city is doing the same thing, what's really going to distinguish Bartlesville or Dewey or Ramona from any other tiny town? Nothing. And when you understand that the goal of this policy, I should have mentioned this at the beginning, the goal of this is to take all of the rural areas. So small towns I lump in with rural, that they do it, so I'm just going to follow their model. The goal is to take all of the smaller areas and sort of reclaim the land, grab the land, and push people into, the largest close by city. And then, once they get everyone out of the little tiny towns into the next largest city, then they're gonna push all the next largest cities into Tulsa. So it's an incremental approach. And meanwhile, the people in Chickasha, in Sapulpa, in Broken Arrow, they all think they've got something cool. But it's no different than anyone else. They might have a leg lamp, Catoosa might have a blue whale, but they're all the same. Is what? No way! You guys have a blue whale too?
Recent contract.
It's not a good thing.
No, it's an easy battery recycling plant.
Oh, yes, that blue whale. Yeah, well, that's your 4IR, right? That's the fourth industrial revolution. Because that's all electric technologies, and so you got to use all of these. You need the batteries to power them.
When I scream at them about taking out our USA-made halogen lights,
Yeah.
putting in those Chinese lights that don't even light up nothing,
Yeah.
and it promotes crime,
Yeah.
they're like, don't worry about it, we got a grant from the government.
Yeah. Well, you know why? It's because those lights, the LED lights, have Li-Fi capacity. So this is like the next generation of, you've got Wi-Fi, and then Li-Fi is next. And so all of the new street lights that you see going in every single town in the world, those are the backbone of an intelligent, smart city system. So you're hearing all of this about smart growth and revitalization and building the economy, and it sounds so nice. But it's always linked to what? A land grab, and then to this smart technology data gathering infrastructure that is going to surveil you, manage your access based on social credit, and confine you to your house. And they're really doing it, okay? Like, I've got to speed it up.
All the cameras everywhere.
Yeah, the cameras that are on your street lights. You've got flock safety cameras rolling out. Sorry, my husband distracted me. for a second. Yes, I will take some. Thank you.
Ma'am, could we go on to questions? I'm not being derogatory about your presentation. I think a lot of us are already burning inside.
Okay. Yes, let me speed through, but let me show you. Okay, so these I'll make available in the slide share that you have on the Google Drive. This just shows you where all of that comprehensive planning language comes from. It comes straight from the UN. Okay, here's your new urban agenda. It talks about building an urban governance structure. This is regionalism, and it's integrating the rural and urban areas so that you can be moved from those smaller cities into the larger mega regions more easily. Because why? Everyone is doing the same thing, they're sharing the same data, they're using the same systems through stakeholder councils and public-private partnerships. Okay, these are the goals. Thank you. These are the goals that you're going to be measured against, and this is how your social credit is going to be tabulated here. You know, you've got 17 goals, you can read them all. Again, we're integrating, and you can see that we're integrating urban and rural functions, and this is for the 15-minute smart cities. This is the important part right here. Urban spatial frameworks, urban planning and design instruments that support sustainable management and use of natural resources and land. All of those buzzwords you're going to find in your comprehensive plan. Now, you all seem like believers here. So, I always try to prove this stuff to people. People think that this is just happening in the cities. It's not. Look, this is a rural reset. So this is a document, the World Social Report 21, Reconsidering Rural Development. So they're absolutely aiming their efforts at the rural areas, and that's why, because they want to empty those out and put those lands into private conservation trusts. Okay, so now let me just go over a few things that are really pertinent to your area. Okay, so well, first of all, let me just stick in here. Who is responsible for the reset? World Economic Forum. Yes, I mean, Klaus and his buddies, our government, the UN, all those people, but really who are the boots on the ground? It's your universities, okay? It's the universities, it's the chambers of commerce, it's the major employers in your area, it's anyone who has large financial holdings, it's asset firms, it's construction companies, developers, anyone who is on the top of the 40 under 40 list, they're helping to do it, okay? You're change makers. So look, OSU here has an initiative helping to rebuild rural towns, and they're active in Washington County doing all sorts of educational programs, bringing technology to farming practices, which sounds like a good idea, but it's actually, just intertwining that.
It's just like murder. I don't understand why OSU is so fabulously famous, because they have been manipulating our foods for so long.
Yeah, I mean, the whole technological enterprise is, it's big bucks for them, and it is in selling it, and then it's big bucks in providing health care after we've bought it, right? So you can look at OSU is doing this. All of the universities are doing it. Here is the USDA has climate smart agricultural programs, and what are they for? So this is how they target farmers and ranchers, people who have land that has water resources on it. They're going to give you these carrots to participate in carbon sequestration programs and putting different protective easements on your property. But what is it for? It's for measurement, monitoring, reporting, and verification. This is the data grab. It's how they compile an inventory of all resources so that they can measure and manage them. Okay, these are some, again, that are pertinent to Oklahoma and partnering with the tribes. enhanced satellite imagery analysis providing for invasive species control in the Chickasaw Nation. Social science to drive brush management, prescribed grazing. So when you see these policies, then you know you're dealing with the New World Order program. Okay, I looked at this document and getting a talk ready for Osage County, but you guys you're right. I was told not to move too much, but you can see Washington County, you're right in the thick of this, right? So this is a conservation plan, and it's kind of an old one, but you can see that they've got you divided into these eco-regions, and they're looking at biodiversity, which is your global regulation, and they have conservation data centers. So again, those inventory controls. This is how they talk about engaging private landowners, and this is their whole strategy for getting you on board. You're going to infuse conservation values into legislation. You've got a whole propaganda operation that's going on. And one of the models is the protection of the Everglades, where they love to say, our resetters love to say that they worked with conservatives. Okay. Managed area status. If you've heard that term, run. Okay, this is how they take your land by attaching the status to it, so that they can then move it into a permanent restriction and protection on the use. Okay, Great Lakes Biome Project. This comes from the USDA. They are not your friend, and they have many programs that affect this area. So one of these is the conservation of grasslands. So how many of you are familiar with the grassland conservation efforts in this area? Not?
Osage has buffalo.
Well, that's another story about the buffalo. So they're going to reintroduce a lot of species, including coyotes, wolves, and buffalo. That's going to help keep you off of those lands that have been grabbed, right? Like, I couldn't make this up, but they're actually doing it. So you'll have this document available, but this is about preserving rangelands and grasslands and making sure that the prairie chicken doesn't go extinct. But in order to save that prairie chicken, there will be all sorts of incentives to reward the private landowner who conserves the public interest. That is a slippery slope to you'll own nothing and be happy. You can see, I have here listed, you've got a global vision, 4IR tech, partnerships, and a data grab all working together to make resilient rangelands and track the data. These are, you can see Washington County is in each of these slides. So there's a monarch butterfly conservation program that is going to incentivize landowners to do all sorts of, what do they call it? It's an adaptation of their land. There's another word, but I'm blanking on it, in order to conserve it. But these are all restrictions on how you can use it and sell it and things like that. So you've got many things that are covering you. Back to the urban feature of this, so those were sort of the Washington County land grab documents. Remember, the new international economic order is global, privatized, and data-driven, and we're going to see how that shapes up in Bartlesville. Okay, so you've got a series of long-range plans and reports. They're all New World Order, and they've been building on each other, one after another. So we're going to look at a couple of them. This is, let me get the right year here. This is the Bartlesville, I think, what was this like I can't see it. I want to say this is the 2013 plan. Okay, you can see, what are they doing? They're balancing private investment objectives. That's how they privatize your government, is by entering a public-private partnership in which the private partner has all of the say over what happens to the public. So the public shoulders the risk while the private partner reaps the reward. So those investment objectives are what do they aim at? Community sustainability. We want to serve future development initiatives, and then you can see that they just keep going with the buzzwords. This,
Community is one of the buzzwords.
yes, yes, community is definitely a buzzword every time. So here you can see this is the strategic plan update 2013. They have bold leadership to put in the axe throwing bars, right? It's bold, it's visionary. But, right, they're going to collaborate so that the city can blaze a new path toward a more prosperous future and an improved quality of life for current and future residents. Doesn't it just get you so excited, right? Bold leadership, that's one of my favorites. This is the same template speak that is going on everywhere, and it's all about sustainable development. Oh, here's a real beauty. This is from the West Bartlesville Development Plan, and it says, if I can read it here, these efforts will target investors who advance sustainability and who promote responsible urban design and smart growth principles. So you're going to get that smart city rolled out and all of the different quality of life social programs. That was back in 2013. West Bartlesville, you can see they've got the balancing formula, privatization. Here's your 2045 plan. Half is the consultancy that developed this plan. They're totally into the new international urban design framework. That's the UN's comprehensive planning document and guidelines. So they say that comprehensive plans guide the future of cities. They act as a compass in guiding us towards sustainable, resilient, and vibrant communities, and they have a vision. So you guys have just paid for this consultancy to turn you into a new world order town. So let me see if there's anything you can go through. If you look at the 2045 plan and compare it to some of the Smart Growth America sites, you're going to see tons and tons of overlap. I have here some slides about transit-oriented development and complete streets, complete neighborhoods. Those are your 15-minute cities in which are surveilled all of the time, and you really have a quarter-mile to half-mile radius of freedom. Okay, so sort of back to where we began, how the finance industry can save the world, because of course the reset is an economic program. They're going to do it through what? Well, the problem that they notice with the old economy that you and I think we're still living in is that it has vague metrics, faulty metrics. We lack widely accepted metrics, and so we need to fix that with data capture technologies, AI, fourth industrial revolution.
They're paying big bucks to the consultants. Who are they? Consultants.
They just specialize in propaganda. I mean, I think it's just a crony network. They say it's adding value, and this new economy runs on value creation, but it's all about perception. It's not anything real. So where does this head? It heads toward 8 billion people living a life of dignity with smart conservation, smart logistics, connected private transportation, e-banking, e-commerce, digital ID, e-health, and basically you'll own nothing and be happy. So it's late, and I'm happy to take some questions. These are the top 10 buzzwords. I thought I had another one on here that was. Nope. We'll finish up and I'll take some questions and, maybe we'll find a solution to the New World Order.
I would just like to make a statement for anyone that thinks this is far-fetched. If you actually go to a city council meeting, I was at the Sapulpa one, she presented it so streamlined, so beautiful, made it sound amazing. She loved to point out that she had the community on board, And the city council, I wasn't there at the second one, but it was reported that they voted it in with smirks on their faces. So I think the most important thing for all of us is to actually be talking about it enough to let them know that the community is not on board. Because one woman told them that, and to be on the other side of the presentation was just absolutely like, it was disgusting, honestly. That's all.
Yeah, Sepulpa, so I read through their whole plan, and their plan is very bad. And they rallied, I think, so admirably. And the city council still passed this terrible plan. I mean, there was a group that went and knocked on business owners' doors and said, they're going to take your land, this is how it's going to affect you. But the council and the mayor, I guess, was involved that night. They're still going to push through with these plans because there's so much money behind it. Because what do these plans do? They set up, one, a crony network of economic development. It's a developed economy. So you've got the big players that are going to benefit. And they already have lots of resources to put behind securing their position into the future. So there's that, and then there is all of the technology and the surveillance and the data grab that is going to enter into your city through these plans. So you have to have a very vocal force attacking on every front and getting everyone into, everyone you can, across party lines, across, lines of Oklahomans versus tribal citizens. You need a giant coalition to make it impossible for people to ignore you and steamroll these plans through.
Conoco is our main source, and they're funded out of Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Have we checked with people in Houston?
No, you can't.
Impressive presentation, by the way. Lots of information, obviously. A lot to download, but at the end of it, what are you recommending people do? I mean, obviously, a lot of people in this room know some of this stuff, but what really is the proper response?
I think, that's always the question is, what do we do about it? I mean, what I keep coming back to is the fact that if you know the language of the template, then you can defend yourself. So there are lots of conservative sounding policies that are introduced at your city council or at the state legislature, and they look like they are a counter to the reset, but they have all of the buzzwords scattered throughout. And there's the economic development side of things, and workforce development is really pushed toward the conservatives. So you have lots of conservatives who are totally opposed to the progressive, woke, ESG-driven reset. But they are rushing headlong into the economic development, workforce development reset. If you know the buzzwords, they do not lie. And we're dealing with resetters here who are systems thinkers. They want to program an entire AI-governed global planetary system. I mean, I'm not exaggerating, they really do. So they think in terms of rules and methods and systems, so they're not very creative. So, if we learn their language, then you can spot the programmatic reset policies that appeal to, say, native conservative values. But we have to stop those too. So, like I just looked into the Oklahoma parental choice tax credit, which people think is a good idea, and a lot of faith-based schools think it's a good idea. It's not a good idea. It's very bad. It's setting up for learning and employment records and digital identity and social credit scoring. But because it was developed by sort of right-leaning policy groups, then people are duped by it, and then these things are rolling out. So number one, you have to know the buzzwords, and they're easy. And I have a whole list. You can look on my website. I've got a list of hundreds and hundreds of these. And I've got handouts here that have like the main ones that you should know. So that's number one. And then number two, you've got to trash the brand. Because this is a system that runs on reputation capital, social credit scoring. It's like trading in your brand. So the Chamber of Commerce has a brand, right? And it's, you know, all of our cities are making logos for brand recognition. Your neighborhoods are doing wayfaring placemaking for brand recognition. So I say you find the people who are doing this, like the kind of middle management types, and you trash their brand publicly, like an old-fashioned tar and feathering type thing. Because everyone is being so nice right now. They say, oh, well, so-and-so's a nice guy, and oh, well, the Chamber has done some good work. No, the Chamber of Commerce is not your friend, and the president of the Chamber of Commerce or the Farm Bureau or whatever it is, they need to be shamed in front of everyone here who's going to be hurt by their policies. So I say, you got to do that, and nobody wants to because it seems mean, but that's the effect of the communitarian propaganda at work, is that we don't want to pick on anybody. You got to get a lot of people that shame, you know, you put someone's face on a billboard and you say, I always use Phil Lakin, he's my city councilor. Phil Lakin supports the reset. Phil Lakin wants to take your car, you know? And you do that, and I think actually in the smaller towns, you have a better chance of that working. But you dig and you find the connections, who's funding these people? Who put them on the 40 under 40 list? Top movers and shakers. You know, I'm sure you've got a little propaganda magazine like we have, the Greater Tulsa Reporter. Yeah, my favorite, you know. And so you find those people and then you shame them publicly and you say, these are the people that are taking your land and stealing your freedoms.
I have heard the expression that Mr. Biden is a puppet. Who is pulling the strings?
Well, I think George Kaiser is.
Soros,
Yeah.
Obama?
Yeah, all those guys. I mean, you know, I pick on George Kaiser because he took over the University of Tulsa where I was teaching. And I started looking into him and I found all of these stuff. So I feel like you know, he's my guy to pick on, but there are many others. But he is, I think, the 9th wealthiest person in America, and he lives in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And his money with Michael Bloomberg controls the whole state. So if, you know, I do think Biden is a puppet. I think most of the, you know, the people in Washington are puppets. To whom? To a banking cartel that is setting up a new economy that trades in data, behavioral outcomes, is social credit scoring.
At ORU, when my friend's kid goes there, and they've been having him listen to some guy that is saying how awful Jewish people are. At ORU, what?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think that particular conflict, the conflict in Israel is, well, I think the U.S. needs to watch out and stay out of it because it's part of a...
ORU is supposed to be Christian.
Well, I think there are lots of different dynamics, but when I look at, say, what's going on with the First Amendment, and anti-Semitism definitions, then you see that the war in Israel is fueling a lot of public protests. And when you see a lot of public protests, I think you should be cautious in wondering, are these really organic? Or are they set to polarize Americans so that they start taking sides and really we start to have a divide here at home? Then in the middle of that, you see that there are these executive orders on anti-Semitism, and they plainly fly in the face of the First Amendment, and the First Amendment is close to my heart. So I think if I have to weigh the two, which one's more important to me, the First Amendment or, preventing all instances of anti-Semitism, I'm going to say the First Amendment is a lot more important to me, and I think to our constitutional system. And people are going to say mean things, ugly things, hateful things, and they're going to have to answer to God for that. Yep. But under our Constitution, free speech should, So I think we've got to look at what's happening in the Middle East very cautiously.
So everyone in Bartlesville just recently had the opportunity, or still has the opportunity, to fill out a questionnaire. And it's all about vision and what you want in the city. And I want to guarantee that whatever you say on that questionnaire, it will come back answering the need for all the things that you've talked about, Julian. There's no place on that questionnaire for you to say, I want limited constitutional government. I want you to reduce my taxes. And I think all of us are going to have to write a letter to go with that questionnaire and say, those are the things important to me, not your vision for the city. I don't want you bringing in a smart city. I don't want you doing all these things for me. I want you in a limited constitutional government stance.
Yeah, I think Sandy's point is right on. You're going to have to supply the defect, and you're going to have to do it in very large numbers and very publicly, because they have all sorts of change agents and, the leadership professionals that are going to go fill out the survey and say we want food trucks and axe throwing bars, and we want, co-working hubs and affordable housing and all the template. So you're going to have to be very loud to oppose it. And, Bartlesville, as I was reading through some of your comprehensive plans, I came upon one of the most fascinating things that I've never seen in any other plan. And it was, I think, listed in the 2013 plan. It talks about how contentious Bartlesville, Bartians? It was how contentious you are. And it said, Bartlesville's main problem is Bartlesville. And it said nobody wants to vote to improve the public schools, and nobody wants to do this. And actually our Chamber of Commerce and the Economic Development Authority, they butt heads all the time because they don't have a common vision. And I thought, you need to work with this. I mean, they actually put it into the comprehensive plan, so it must be so big and the rifts must be so deep that they couldn't ignore it. And I think this is really something for you all to draw on and bring out when you try to oppose this new plan.
So what you just said is a perfect segue into what I had to ask or bring up. So in 2019, they had a next plan. That next plan, if you begin looking at the corporations, was all about establishing succession. And if you look at our city council, they've been establishing succession. How many in here have maybe tried to be on one of the city committees? They're choosing who they put on those. One of our councilmen was selected and then ran again. And it was about succession. If you pay attention with the division within our party, and I don't really call it division, I call it people standing up and doing what you've challenged us to do, calling them out on actual rules. So the corporation that they hired, half, for this part, is tied in. If you go look up Department of Transportation, you find out that Oklahoma has 1,400 people that attended smart city competitions and education programs. I had already put a post out about Dale Copeland being one of the 1,400 mayors in 30,000 up cities. He denies that he's on that, but there's no way that you can. When you look at the difference between the group of people in this room, and yes, there are some people here from ROC, the majority of the people in the ROC are all Chamber of Commerce. And they've been driving an agenda, it appears to me, for a very, very long time. So in closing, I want to speak to Israel on my part. We're to bless Israel, but what is a blessing? And the Lord calls Israel in 15 just as they're going into, are we blessing Israel or are we cursing them when we give them money? And I'm going to read Deuteronomy 15:6. For the Lord your God will bless you as he promised you, and you shall lend many nations, but you shall not borrow. And you shall rule over many nations, but they shall not rule over you. We have been ruling over Israel. We're lending to her after the Lord's told them not to take money from other countries. We're accountable. We're culpable, and we need to know our word. And so in closing, I'm going to finish real quick. The Lord says that signs and wonders will be had, that will know his future, what he's doing. This next eclipse goes over 6 cities by the name of Nineveh. Nineveh had 40 days to repent. So the very idea of calling people and holding them out in public may be the best favor we've ever done. Thank you.
I have a couple of pieces of legislation that have concerned me greatly. One, I would like to know if you're watching state legislation and how it affects what you're talking about. And I'd like to just mention these two. People asked what you can do, and what we can do is contact our legislators that are elected. One of these bills passed the House today, almost unanimously. 7 people voted against it. It is creating the Rural County Economic Development Act of 2024, which gives the authority to your county commissioners to direct the economy, basically, but to develop the economy, as what you're saying. So that's one that has greatly concerned me. The other one passed a Senate committee, again, one in opposition, but even those that we know as conservative legislators are supporting this. And this one came out as a state chamber initiative in January. And we can always tell what the legislative agenda is going to be from the leadership by what the state chamber puts out each year. This one is called the COMPETE Act. It is creating Oklahoma's modern plan for economic transformation and effectiveness. It's taking the authority of economic development plans from the legislature, where it has been traditionally, where you have an elected official, and putting it into the hands of a new agency. They're creating a new agency. So it will be appointed positions. You will no longer have any say in I mean, all these things are passing through without opposition anyway, but at least you have had a representative in the past that could stand up for that. Now they're taking it out of the legislature and allowing this agency, if this passes, and again, it probably will. So anyway, these are 2 bills. That's Senate Bill 1447, and the other is House Bill 4070. They're sailing through. The state chamber, when it presented the COMPETE Act, said, we need to streamline this. You know, when it has to go through, like when the Panasonic deal went through the legislature and we failed to grab Panasonic, it's because the legislature stalled it. We need to pull it out of there and streamline this, and therefore we need this agency to address it. So I wanted to point those out, see if you're following state legislation and how it interacts with what you're discussing. Thanks.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have several groups that I work with, and they do different things. So I have one group that is just looking at state legislation, and they send out blasts. Here's what you need to respond to. Here's what you need to respond to. And I can't look at all of it. I mean, it's hard not to. You know, you think, oh, I'm just going to open this one, right? So I hadn't looked at those two particular acts, but they fit the template exactly. And if you've seen one, then you've seen them all. And right now, there are so many of these different policies that are being pushed through the legislature. You know, the workforce development revolving loan program, this compete, their REAP grants, they all have fancy acronyms. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that would fit this. A lot of the ladies I work with watch election integrity, and that's really important too, so I've been sidetracked by that. But what you mentioned about outsourcing these decisions to stakeholder councils and public-private partnerships, this is crucially important because, you know, I said the land grab was not a public land grab, it's a privatized land grab. They're privatizing government right now. So, you know, in the transition to stakeholder councils, these are unelected, unaccountable positions that can do almost whatever they want with public monies. And they're issuing regulations without, they don't have to, you know, follow the same notices for publishing meetings, their dates and agendas and so on. And they are already, the people who staff those stakeholder councils are already embedded in thick crony networks between business and government.
The Compete Act that I mentioned, the Senate bill, actually it states that the people involved in this agency will all be under non-disclosures. So they will be using your tax money to incentivize these development projects, and you won't even know what's going on.
We're not going to know, and it really is a crony network. There are 5 target areas of economic development for the state. It's aerospace, I want to say agriculture and biosciences, financial technologies, distribution and logistics, and there's one other one. But you can look it up. There are 5 target industries, and so all of the major corporations and players in those industries who stand to benefit from it, they're going to be appointed to the stakeholder councils. And if you look at our state logo, it is the UN color wheel. And the state motto is imagine that. And reimagining government, reinventing government, this is a buzzword. Just look at it. I think I have it on one of the slides that I skipped through. But what they're trying to do is destroy state governments and transform them into sort of regional brands. And that's because the states actually give us protections against the federal government and against the corporations. But right now, they're so co-opted by these special interests and crony networks that the people are really going to have to do a lot of, you know, revolutionary work to root out the crime and restore the rule of law to this this land that is beautiful but is in a very pitiful state right now. So we have to go.
We have time for one more.
One more? Okay.
One more if it's quick.
Okay, real quick, I just want to highlight an area of vulnerability, and that's churches. Senator Matthews, Wendy, you may have heard, just came back from Washington, D.C., Matthews out of Tulsa. He managed to acquire funding for some pet projects, infrastructure, healthcare, and information technology. He also managed to get funding for, I believe, a feasibility study, and the agency or organization that's managing that is, I believe, Greenwood Church of Christ. So government is getting involved in areas that are duplicitous at best.
Yeah. So, well, this is, I think, a really important issue that I try to talk about when I don't run out of time. So thank you for the question. Faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, other houses of worship are going to be co-opted into the Build Back Better reset agenda. They already are. You can see it by their branding, marketing, the new approach to evangelization, which is basically just community outreach and engagement versus teaching doctrine and theology. So for the conservative-leaning crowds, the Christians, there is a nicely packaged brand of or prong of the reset that establishes partnerships between government and faith-based institutions. I mean, the parental choice tax credit is a perfect example of this. And so you're going to see lots of federal money and state money coming into to nonprofit organizations to do what? To be social change makers. Now, my hunch is that you're going to see a conservative faith-based push coming up against a more like a liberal secular philanthropy push. And they're both going to be sort of competing for hearts and minds of the people. Now, which one wins out? I don't know. I think they'll probably both blend together in the end. But we're going to see that we need to be wary of government partnering with anyone, whether it's the church or the corporations. And we also need to, we need to understand the importance of not giving up on government in favor of stakeholder councils or in favor of your church acting as a government. So we still have a bit of control over our elected representatives, not much, but within the public mind, most people on the ground still believe that our Constitution matters and that laws matter, and that belief in and of itself is important. Until no one believes in the rule of law and the Constitution, we still have the ability to persuade our representatives because they care about optics. They care about how things look. So we just have to sort of make the public myth work. So that is to say, how does that tie into this question? Well, we don't want to say that nothing government does is good and it should all be outsourced to the private sector, whether it's faith-based or corporate. Because I use this example all the time. If you try to argue out, say you get into a conflict with your giant insurance company and you try to argue over your bill, say it's a $25 copay or something. This hits close to home. Are they going to listen to you? Or are you going to be stuck in a loop of press 1 for this, press 1 for that, da, 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 da? Well, the goal of this whole system is to have no governments at all, just to have an AI global planetary system, regulate everything, not someone you can argue with, not a sentient being. It's a computer program. That's the goal. They want to get rid of. So we have to protect government, and we have to root out the corruption that's there, and preserve its proper place in society. And part of that is, especially as conservatives, not falling into the trap of saying, well, let's just privatize everything. Let's give it over to the churches. Government can't do anything good, so we're better off without it.
I'd like to make one quick statement.
in regard to how we deal with these plans that are coming. The first thing that I would say as a practical suggestion is to vote no on the Barson City Council charter changes, okay? The city government in Bartlesville would become less responsive to voter input if their terms of office were changed from 2 years to 3 years, and instead of every second year having to be elect the whole city council, but a rotating 1, 2, 3 concept for those 5 city councils. I'm Barson. I'm from Ward 3, Precinct 32, Ward 3, in the middle of Bartlesville. So I really appreciate the things you said here tonight.
Thank you.
And we need to be on guard against it. Vote no, April 12th.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming here all the way to Ramona to chat with us about that.
That was fabulous.
Thank you.